Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started on football, I'd like to congratulate Coach Mitty on win number 600 last night. What a great, remarkable career that Jeff has had, and he's been a great supporter of mine and our football program, so excited for Jeff to be able to get 600, and then congratulate Coach Tang on the first of many wins here. Excited for Coach Tang, his staff, his players to get started last night, and he's been a great supporter of ours as well, and so good start by men's and women's basketball, and best of luck to them as they continue on with their seasons, early on in their seasons. With regard to us, looking back at the film, it was kind of a tale of two halves. In the first half, we couldn't get off the field on defense. Give Texas credit with some schemes that they did, and then we didn't tackle very well at all. And then when we loaded the box up a little bit more to try, they got some passes on us, and just didn't play very well on defense that first half. Offensively, we moved the ball really well. Didn't answer. We answered the first score, drove down the field, tried to answer the second score, but had to kick a field goal, and then moved down the field to answer the third score, and that's when we had the fourth down and didn't get it. And by that time, then it's 21-10, and it was 31-10 at halftime after we gave them a score late. Probably could have been worse, but Echo Boyle made a big time play to kind of save a touchdown, and then in the second half, it got a little bit better once Josh Hayes made a big play and got the strip and gave the crowd, gave our team, gave everybody a little bit of life and a little bit of jolt, and offense took it in and scored, and then we started to settle in a little bit more and play a really good game. But that time we were probably down a little bit too much, but all in all, I was pleased with the effort, pleased with the comeback, and how the guys stayed in the fight, and with whatever 2.5 to go, it's 34-27 with a chance to tie or go ahead if we would have gone for two if we'd have scored, but didn't happen, and we got to learn from it. We've got to own it. Coaches, we talked about it, we need to be better as well, and it's going to be another tough battle this week going to Baylor. A great place to play, a really good team. They're playing really well, and we have to have great plans come up with, because it's going to be a big challenge for us.
What exactly is Baylor doing now that they've become a better football team last night?
Yeah, they turned it over a little bit against the West Virginia game. I saw they turned it over and gave up more explosive plays than Baylor typically does. They're so difficult to defend offensively because they have misdirection. They run an outside zone play. They run play action out of it. You think we go for it a few times on fourth down. It's going to be a game of possessions because they're going to hang on to the football. And if it's 3rd and 7, they're going to try to get it to 4th and short to go for it again to try to keep the football away from people. And I thought they had a really good plan against Oklahoma and executed really well on offense. On defense, it's a little bit different structure than what they've done the last couple of years, but they have really talented players, and the guys they're playing with a lot of confidence.
Is it coming off a game like that in which you didn't play well?
Mm-hmm.
There was just enough deficiencies that you couldn't overcome it. Is it hard to get the guys reorganized, or at 21 years old they just moving on?
Yeah, I think that's the way it is. I mean, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about positives, talk about some of the things that we didn't do as well, try to eliminate some of those negative plays that did happen to us, because that's the poor start we had on defense put us too big of a hole for sure. And I do think they're pretty resilient, and they know that it's the next one on the docket, and it's a tough matchup, but I'm pretty confident they'll respond.
How crazy is it coaching in this league? And I know every coach around the country, no matter what level, will say, you can lose every game, that's every game. But in this conference, you're literally in peril every game.
It really is, and that's a credit to the coaches, a credit to the talent, the parity, the fact that matchups are so important in this league. Just how you match up with somebody, whether it's O-line, D-line, to skill guys, whatever it may be. it's a play here and there that maybe changes the momentum, and that's the thing. We could not get the momentum in the first half at all. It just snowballed on us, and in the second half we make a play and get the momentum back somewhat. But that's a challenge in looking at, you could look at the slate of games and you could make a case for either team every weekend, and that's part of the Big 12 in college football right now.
Two guys who were a little banged up at the end of last week with Malik and Cade, and I was just wondering how they're...
Yeah, I don't see Malik or Cade practicing today. Our hope is to get them back on Wednesday. That's what the trainers have said, whether it's in a limited role or whether it's more full speed. But we believe both are going to be available.
And I know Will's a team player.
Yep.
He handled everything fine. But what was the back and forth there, saying you played your games, now you're going to get back?
He and I are still having that conversation, so I don't want to speak to it yet until I get a chance to truly visit with him. I know Colin visited with both he and Adrian. We still have a plan, and Will understands the plan, and we'll keep him abreast of the situation. And I look at it from Will's point of view, and I've not played a full season yet. And whether that is by default of Skylar getting hurt or by Adrian coming here and playing, and I know the competitive side of Will wants to play a full season.
But he handled last year.
Absolutely. Those two guys are really good friends, and he handled that really well as a team player. You bet he would want to play. Just like the week before, I think Adrian wanted to play, and he couldn't, and Will said, let's go. And that's the healthy part of that relationship, as well as how I think Coach Klein handles those guys.
Baylor's been particularly opportunistic defensively the last couple of weeks. Is that anything they're doing schematically, and do you just lock in on what you guys do to prevent that?
A little bit of both. They play some really tight man coverage, and they had some balls that were overthrown. Oklahoma did that they made some picks on, especially in the first half, that flipped the field on them. They got a couple of fourth down stops. They converted a couple of fourth downs, which gave them another possession in essence. And then they're going to run some timely pressures. And they do a really good job of offense complementing the defense as far as controlling the football offensively, hitting some explosive plays when they need to, and then getting those stops at critical times. But the last few weeks they're finally clicking in my mind on all cylinders, and going to OU and winning on the road is a big win for them.
There's been a common theme in the TCU game and the Texas game of facing the run. How do you work on those fundamentals through the week when you're so limited in how much you can live tackle? Yeah,
and there's a lot of things, whether it's live tackle or just the amount of shoulders and stuff that people have. You try to simulate a lot of fits. You try to simulate a lot of schemes. We've simulated it every week, the same thing. Now, the simulation didn't work against TCU, and it worked really well against Oklahoma State. And then it didn't work as well. You can't simulate Bijan Robinson very well. But it's something that, we have to do a really good job stopping the run, and this is going to be one of those weeks that's going to be really tough. We've got to get a lot of hats to the ball.
And have you had a chance to analyze the time management situations that you guys encountered on Saturday?
Well, if there's really the only one that is to talk about, and that's the last sequence of the game, and Colin and I were on the right page of, we got a first down, the clock stopped. You don't want to waste a timeout when the clock stops, and we both said, let's go one more play, and if we stay in bounds, we'll use one, and we didn't get that play because we ended up getting stripped on that play.
The kick return game's kind of stunned a little bit. Then you kind of get to yard line on a number of occasions. If you think about fair catching it out?
Not with the guys we have back there. We don't. We struggled. I thought Texas did a really good job in kind of schemed up some of the returns that we had. We've looked at it thoroughly Sunday and Monday, and believe we have some help, some answers to try to counteract that, because you still want to find a way to get Malik and Phil the ball when you can, rather than just fair catch it. But we have to be better on that. I would say, speaking of special teams, I think Ty Zentner had his best game at K-State. He's kicking the ball at such a high level, from kicking it out of the end zone into the wind to, I think his best punt was into the wind, and then he's throwing triple duty on there with PATs and field goals, and happy for Ty because in his last year of college ball, he's getting to do all three and doing them with great success.
You talked about the remarkable play by Echo Boy Dove, but Cody Savage really blew up that third down to give your offense a chance. Is that he just read that play?
It was a blitz. And I'm sure they were probably supposed to hook him, and instead they tried to kick him out, and the ball stayed outside. But he stayed on course and stayed on his track and made a big play.
Coach, I want to ask you about Blake Shapen. You guys had a chance to see him. You were one of the only teams to see him last year when he came into the game. Does that give you any kind of advantage, having seen him in person?
Absolutely, because he was really good last year. I mean, really good, and we didn't know much about him. I'm sure Baylor knew a lot about him, and he threw the ball with precision. He threw it with confidence. He ran the ball really well. I think he was the difference. I mean, he was a big spark. Not that Bohannon wouldn't have led him to a victory. Don't get me wrong. I just think that kid rose to the occasion, and you see it. I mean, you see it every game he plays, and I'm not sure when it happened. I know he missed some of the West Virginia game, and they probably sputtered a little bit when he wasn't out there. But he's a terrific talent and a guy that can beat you with his arm or his legs.
I want to ask you about the targeting penalty. 2 games now with the lead, and then Julius, that you've had that happen. Is there any way to talk about how to properly play the hitter?
Yeah, we talk about it all the time, and emphasize those things to take it out of the game. We're advocates of everything, of keeping your eyes up and seeing what you're hitting. I think that was a really hard one for Julius to get away from. I don't fault Julius. It was such a bang play that the ball was there and he was right there. I'm not saying it was a bad call, because I get why we call these things, and I'm comfortable with them calling it. I'm okay. I'm not saying that. I just thought it was really going to be difficult for him to avoid it, and we keep talking about different ones of targeting 1, targeting 2. I don't know if we'll ever get to that, because it's still about player safety, and I understand why we won't get to that if we don't, of targeting 1, targeting 2. It's unfortunate the penalty is so severe when it's not a blatant, malicious, I'm going to lower my head and just spear you deal. But that's a conversation for probably another day with a bunch of people in a room that they're going to have, and I felt bad for Julius, because I know there was no intent on his part.
You always talk about next man up, Jacob Parrish. How would you assess his play?
Jacob played really well for a true freshman coming in there, and he's played a lot of games now, and he's done some really good things, and it's going to help him in the future, because he's going to be a terrific player here, and he's going to play a little bit more even each week. It just hurt losing Julius. Is a legit 6'3", 210-pound corner that is one of our best tacklers and one of our best cover guys, and it was a factor for sure.
Coach, you conveyed earlier in the season that you meet with your quarterbacks on a routine basis. Can you describe what your conversations were with Adrian after the game on Saturday?
Yeah, I didn't talk to many guys after the game with all the stuff that I have to do, but I get them on Sunday or Monday and Tuesday, and like we met yesterday and we watched a lot of the tape of Baylor. I don't review the game with them. Colin does that, but we meet on Monday, and then we meet when I leave here and talk about things that I see from the next opponent. We talk a little bit about things that he saw on Saturday, things that he liked, things that he wishes he maybe would have changed, whatever it may be. But I'm not going to be a hindsight's 20/20 guy. It's tough, and their 2 D tackles were really good, and they were back in this hip pocket most of the game. He probably avoided 4 or 5 sacks because of his athleticism. But those guys are really good. And Adrian knows he's got to do a great job of hanging on to the football and having good ball security during those times when the pocket collapses. That's something that he knows. But we kind of move on pretty quickly and start talking about the next opponent, especially because it's Monday and Tuesday, and we got to start moving on.
Can you explain how much he's maybe improved from game 1 against South Dakota to what you saw?
I think, the confidence in throwing the football. I thought he made some really, really good throws, especially off schedule or with people right in his lap. Just hang in there, took some shots. What was great was on Sunday in his conversations with Coach Klein, he felt really good. He was sore because he hadn't played in a month, but he felt really good, and so we don't see anything that would slow him down from continuing to feel better and better.
You talked about Baylor's run game a little bit, how important that's going to be to stop. Can you go into a little bit more, especially Reese in particular, and what makes things good?
He's got great vision. He's got tremendous balance. He understands that for a young player, the scheme that they're trying to run with some of the wide or outside zone, and sticks his foot in the ground and gets vertical pretty well and runs through arm tackles, but he's also got the speed to beat you on the edge.
And then Baylor leads the league in interceptions. Obviously, K-State's been pretty good about avoiding those, but have you seen anything that they do that sets them up in that position?
Well, a couple things. They play some man coverage with some 2 high safeties that allow those guys to read some eyes. And when you get, they're pretty long up front, so there's some batted balls that they get a lot of tips, what we call tips and overthrows. If the balls are tipped, they find a way to make the play. If there's some overthrows, they got people in position to make plays, and they're very opportunistic on defense, and they don't give you anything real easy, and that's the thing that we've got to do a great job of with the different concepts that they do, whether it's off their pressures or off their base stuff. We're going to have to do a great job of keeping the football and managing that and not getting the second and third and long and staying on schedule.
You look at Baylor box scores, they actually kind of remind me of what you guys used to do at North Dakota State. 4 or 5 guys having rushing touchdowns in games. What makes that so hard to defend?
Keeping fresh bodies more than anything. I think they have a multitude of running backs that can make plays. They've got a bunch of wide receivers that can make plays. Tight ends are a factor. I think comes back to the QB. He knows how to distribute the ball. He's so comfortable for a young player in what he sees. All of them understand that the run's going to set up everything, and if you can't stop the run, it's going to be a long day for you. And if you put more guys in there to stop the run than the play action, some of the bootleg stuff is going to be an issue for you. And so we have to have great high discipline this week. It's so important that our guys understand their keys and reads and stay with them, and don't try to do somebody else's job.
You rely primarily on your 3 receivers most of the year, now with 2 guys that are banged up a little. Who are some guys that RJ got in?
RJ will play a little bit more. We still have some games with Jaden Jackson. He's a guy that we're hoping to save his year because of what you guys see with the guys that are playing. We'll give Jaden, he'll be on the trip, hopefully get a bunch of practice reps, and if we can use him, need to use him, want to use him, we have that availability based on Cade and Malik. But those guys, in particular, Seth Porter's another one that is old reliable, playing on all the special teams, but obviously it gives us some things in the pass game as well as some of the jet sweep things.
This strikes me as a very resilient and unified team. Where does that come from?
The captains and the senior leadership and the leadership council, those guys. To what you guys asked before about any given Saturday, this is a hard league, and they understand that too. They know that we battled our tail off and won a tight ball game against Texas Tech, battled our tail off, won a tight ball game against Iowa State, against Oklahoma. We made the plays at critical times. And on the flip side, battled our tail off, didn't make the plays against TCU at the critical time. Same thing with Texas. The Oklahoma State game happened. It's just, you got to stay the course. And it's hard to win. You got to do things right. You got to get the games into the fourth quarter, and then you've got to be able to make plays. And they're resilient because they believe in each other. They love each other. It's a really tight locker room. Nobody's going to point fingers at anybody. I'm excited to see how the guys respond. We're into November in the last quarter of our season, and there's a lot of football to be played, and there's a lot of story to be written by these guys.
How much do you address where this team stands in the standings right now and the fact that they're still that game?
Yeah, they probably know. It's something that we don't get too caught up in, because then you start thinking about variables and what needs to happen or can happen. As soon as you start getting too much into that, you're not going to do what you need to do to be successful. And all the teams that are in the hunt, in the race, would tell you the same thing. It's such a difficult league that you just better focus on the task at hand and control really what you can control.
Coach, I want to ask you, go back to the Texas game, when Ben Sinnott catches the ball, ends up jumping over somebody. What's going through your mind when you see that? And just kind of speak to his athleticism.
Yeah, he's getting more and more confident. Ben's a really good athlete, really good football player that is starting to understand that some of the things he can do, and how athletic and how strong he is. I know his best football is still in front of him as he continues to learn how to play it at the college level. He's still a young player, but I'm glad he's gaining confidence and playing fast.
And then just how important are eliminating pre-snap penalties? It seemed like
Huge. Yeah, we had too many. We absolutely had too many. And we have to have that style of coming up to the line of scrimmage and going on tempo or going on a second count, just so that Coach Klein can see the defense, decide if we're going to stay in a call, get in a different call. We've got to have better focus.
Anything else?
How vital is 8 Sims when Baylor gets in that third and medium situation?
He's very valuable. I mean, because he's a really good blocker, does a great job in the naked bootleg game, does a really good job of protection as well. They're a team that utilizes their tight ends really well.
Good. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.